Hi, I'm Kevin with Acteon. Today we're going to go over some AIS and AIS 3D training. Um, if you go to our website, acteongroup.com, you can go to the Education tab, down to Product Training Videos, and then AIS 3D, and you're going to find some additional videos produced by Acteon that also cover the 3D training. If you don't have our software, AIS, which stands for Acteon Imaging Suite, you can go to the Acteon portal, and that's www.acteonportal.com. Click Downloads, and that'll go ahead and take you into the download screen, which you can then click the latest version, AIS 4.2 full installer. That brings you into here, and you're just going to go ahead and click here and download this suite, and you can run it, and you'll have AIS. So from there, let's go ahead and open up AIS. You're going to see that on the desktop you'll have AIS in a blue icon and then AIS 3D in this pink icon. It's the blue icon that you want to open. When you open it the first time, it's going to ask you for a password and login. In most cases, your password should be staff, and then your login should be capital P ASSWORD 1 exclamation point. So you'll see here, password 1 exclamation point. That's what you would want to put in for your password. Anyways, so I'm already logged into the software. Once you pull it up, you're going to see this patient data screen. This is where all of your patients are. So you can go ahead and search whatever patient you want to find in here. If you needed to add a patient, it's very easy. You click this here, and then you go ahead and put in the patient's information. The only thing the software requires is the last name and the first name. Date of birth will default to either today or, in this case, just the generic date of birth. If you do put in additional information, that's great. I would suggest that you do put in either a reference number or a patient ID number, because you could have maybe more John Smiths or, in my case, Kevin Cronin's. And you want to make sure you can differentiate between the two. You would then, of course, press OK, and then that patient's name would appear on this list, and you would choose the patient and open it. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and open this test patient. So this is what a blank, brand new patient template would look like. So you'll see no icons here. If we wanted to go back and pick another patient, we could do one of two things. We can toggle between patients, left or right, or click the name, in this case it's test again, and go back to the patient screen where we have all of our patients, and just pick a new patient. Now this particular patient is actually a case that shows our sensors with some endo. We can go ahead and toggle through and see some additional ones. This has our sensor images as well as some camera images. Some pedo, as well as our 3D images, such as here. So let's go back to test, and now let's just say we wanted to capture an image. There are a few ways to do this. Because we're looking at more of a AIS version here, and we're focusing on the 3D aspect, I'll show you how to use your prime. So with your prime, you either have a prime 2D, you either have a prime 3D, which would be 2D and 3D, or you have a prime with Ceph, which could be 2D, 3D, either or, and with the Ceph option. So what you see up top here from left to right is pan acquisition, that would be 2D, Ceph acquisition, and then 3D acquisition, CVCT. If you wanted to acquire a pan, no big deal. Click pan, and then from here you'll have this acquisition screen. So up here is very important. This is the Bible of what you need to be focusing on. At this point in time, it's saying that we want to select the exam and press the 0 button. The 0 button is the button on the far right of the display of the touch screen on your prime. So real quick, we're just going to kind of go over the different modalities that we offer. Click the main menu that's here, and then you will have your panoramics, You've got your bite wings, you've got your sinuses, and as well as your TMJ. Quality test is just for calibration, not to be used for capturing any images. So that would be for your 2D modalities. Now, 3D and Ceph have their own tabs. With Ceph, it's the same thing. Click Main Menu, and you'll have lateral to lateral, anterior to posterior, as well as carpus for your hands. 3D, that's going to include all of the 12 by 10 down to your 5 by 5 scans. So you have your front dentition, which you see here. We can do a single jaw, upper or lower. You can also do quadrants or sections, so in the upper, or you can do them in the lower. You can do TMJ. Now with TMJ in 3D, it's going to be left or right, as opposed to in 2D where you could do both. Sinuses, and then of course extended volumes, which is going to give you that full 12 by 10 or even a airway scan. Now, once you've acquired your image, so let's just say you've acquired a pan, it would look something like this. You can go ahead and double click your image, and you're going to pull up this screen here. From here, if you wanted to, you can click to measure. We can also make some adjustments depending on if you want it to be a little darker, a little lighter. Perhaps you want to change to a more grainy look. All these are configurable to however you prefer to look at your pans. You can exit out. In this case, I'm not going to save because all I did was make a measurement and change some contrast. Also, if you wanted to, you could right click, and from here we can export this image. Let's just say you wanted to save it to your desktop and email it. Or you could also send it by email if you had an email program on your computer. With your 3D images, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take this image from Dan Martin. You have some similar options when you right click. You can create a DVD with the onboard DVD burner. You can export the case. This would be used if you wanted to email it or send it digitally. It's a little too big to email, so what you would actually do is use like a Dropbox or a OneDrive, Google Drive, or something of that nature, or you would export the DICOM directory. This is an export of a shortcut to where the DICOM is loaded on your computer. You'd probably use this if you're going to, let's just say, upload to Blue Sky Bio or some of the other online programs. Or of course, you just double click or click here to launch the DICOM. So let's go ahead and do that with, actually, yeah, let's go ahead and use Dan Martin's case right here. So we're going to double click and launch his case. You'll see here that this opens up the 3D app. That's why you didn't want to open it individually. You want to open it through this software here so that the software knows what scan you're opening. So here we are at the 3D AIS software. All right, so the AIS 3D training that I'm going to show you here, I'm not going to cover every little detail of the software because it's just so robust. I'm really going to focus on what you're actually going to be using 99.9% of the time. So once you open up the software and you have your DICOM open, you're going to see some different toolbars, and let's go over those now. Obviously, save is just as it sounds. Reset, that's kind of if you get a little bit cattywampus on things. You just click the reset and it takes you back to a centered view. Layout, this changes what you're seeing. So you can see your different axial, sagittal, and coronal views, or if you wanted to include the 3D rendering, you can change that all up. I personally think this is the best view to use. Screenshot is just that. It takes a photo of the screen. So it took a photo of what the screen is. You can change it to a JPEG or a PNG and save it wherever you want to your desktop. This is a great tool if you wanted to take a screenshot of what you're looking at and send it to a referring doctor. WL. This is contrast. So you'll notice right now I have a arrow for my mouse pointer. If I left click, now I have this round ball. If I left click and hold and move my mouse physically forward or backwards, I can add or remove some of the contrast here. So I can kind of help the scatter. But if you go too far, you'll notice that you'll remove some important information. So there is a fine line between where you want to kind of remove that scatter to. If you go left or right, you can change your color. It's important to remember to click out of the WL so you have your mouse point back. This right here is your ruler tab. So clicking here, we can measure a distance. Or we can even do an annotation. So let's just say I want to put my words here. And this tooth right here is going to be an extraction. Boom. So now we can take a screenshot of this if we needed to. One thing to note is this data that we put here is only applicable to this slice of the view. So what I mean by that is if I move to another slice, see this red line here, it's this red box. If I roll down to, or roll up or roll down, I roll right past my annotations to another slice because obviously 69 millimeters is only applicable right here. If we move up, that might not be 69 millimeters anymore. It's only 69 millimeters right where it was. Oh, well, right where it was. Okay. So let's go ahead and click clear all the measurements. Undo and redo, that's applicable in certain parts of the software. Settings, you can make some changes in here. Help, and then of course exit. Now, each one of these boxes here has its own little toolbar. If you click this toggle full screen button, it does just that. On the 3D rendering, we have the ability to change the way that this looks. So we have soft tissue, bone, and then of course this sort of rendering that we have here. Now you'll notice when I clicked back on this, I changed the contrast. So we're going to want to go in and readjust that back to where it was that we liked. We also have the ability to show, hide the implants, the abutments, the anatomy, the sleeves. As of right now, we have not added any of that, so there's really nothing to show or hide. This right here turns the scout planes on. So what that means is each one of these slices, clicking this, is right here. So you see this green box? This green box is this green box here. This red box is this red box. This blue box is this blue box. If I use my mouse to left click, I can readjust the positioning. So now this green line is this green box. I can take this green line and I can actually left click and hold one of these circles and I can adjust it. So now I've angulated it right down this jawline, which you'll see here. And you also see here. If this dark center is something you didn't like, click here, and now you only have the lines. Or if you don't like it at all, you can just take them off. So as you can see here, we're angulated right down this jawline. Since this one doesn't look like it's quite in view perfectly, we can fix that by using the right mouse button. So we'll right click and we can zoom out. And here we are. We've got it more into the screen. If you wanted to right click and hold, we'll right click and hold, and then we'll physically push the mouse forward. Now we've zoomed in, right? So right click and hold, pushing forward zooms in, right click and hold, pulling it out, zooms out. Sometimes if we get really out of place, I like to just go ahead and click in the center, kind of just zoom us right back in so we can center it up. As far as what we see here, these three screens are where you're going to make your calculations. This is where you're going to make your diagnosis. This is really what you're going to use to define your case. This is just a 3D rendering, just for patient acceptance. Don't base your data off of this. This is what your accurate data is. So, if you wanted to take a look to see, is there a crack? What's going on with a particular tooth? These are the screens you would do that. I am not a dentist, so I'm really not going to be able to teach you exactly what you're seeing and what that is. There are plenty of courses out there, but there are a few things I can point out to you, like right here, we've got the nerve, and you'll notice the way that this is changing. What I'm doing here is on your mouse, you have a roller in the center between your left click and right click buttons. I'm rolling forward or backwards, and that is rolling this slice forward or backwards. So you see the green lines here, they move because I'm in the green box. They move forward or backwards with that slice. If I was in the blue box, you'll notice the blue lines on the other two boxes move forward or backwards as well. If I was in the red box, the same thing. So from the red box, we can go superior, inferior, right? Or adjust all of these views. So that's how you use the mouse to manipulate these views. Within each of these views, you have some options. You can go full screen, go back. We can even change it to seeing before, current, and after, or front, back, current, or maybe you prefer this way, right? Or you just want to see the one. NPR, you really want to keep the NPR view. We're not really going to use any of the others. This right here is the thickness of the slice. You want to stay as thin as possible for the most detail. You'll notice when we go thick, this slice becomes as thick as this, and it becomes very blurry. So stay thin, and we don't really need to adjust the contrast on these. They are well defined currently. So each of these views has those options. Now, let's go ahead and talk about using the 3D software beyond just diagnosing. So let's go ahead and say we wanted to do an extraction. Let's just say we're going to extract one of these teeth in the lower and replace it with an implant. So to do that, let's go ahead and isolate the lower. So what I mean by that is I don't want to see any of the upper. I just want to focus solely on the lower. When I click the face and then I click front, it takes me right back to the front view. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn the trimming on. So that's on this image wizard on the left. We'll turn the trimming on. It puts this cool little box around the image. So if I grab this upper point here and I pull it down, you'll notice that I'm just trimming out that upper. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to trim out any of my lower. So I'm just going to go to about here where it gets the upper out, most of it, but doesn't compromise my lower. And then I'll click permanently trim. Now I've just gotten rid of that upper minus this little bit here. Now keep in mind, when you do this, this does not do away with your original DICOM, right? Or this does not do away permanently with this information. Your original DICOM will never be affected. If we save this, it's going to save a copy, and you'll always have your original. So you don't have to worry if you make any massive mistakes. You can just go back to the beginning. So the next thing we're going to do is sculpt. Think of sculpting like shooting a laser. If I was to shoot a laser through here, it's not only going to make a hole here, but it's also going to make a hole on the opposing jaw, right? So sculpting does the same thing. If I sculpt a hole here, I sculpt everything that's in this view. So you want to make sure that whenever you're sculpting, there's nothing behind the area that you're sculpting that you need. So if you wanted to, you can kind of tilt this so that just that little bit of upper is free floating and you're only sculpting out that upper, or you just take it in little bite-sized sections. Let's do that. So I'm going to click Start Sculpting. I'm just going to left click some dots around the area that I want to trim out. We're just going to do a little bit at a time, so we're going to sculpt that. And then we'll go ahead and angulate this the same way over here. Start sculpting. We'll just do that for now. Boom. And then now we've got just this little bit here, which actually might be easier to take from this side. I'm gonna right click and hold and zoom in. And now you'll see, boom, this is free floating with nothing that I need to be worried about. Real easy. Sculpt, now that's gone. If I wanted to, I can sculpt out this little bit here. Boom. All right, so now I'll zoom out, right click to zoom out. And now we have our lower nice and clean with no any additional data. There's a little bit here, but you know what? That's okay. So from here, we're just going to click Next Step. This image filtering, this is, you're really never going to use this. So go ahead and click Next Step. So what we do when we click Next Step is simply toggle through these tabs on the left. Right? So by clicking Next Step, it brings us to the 3D setting. From the 3D setting, what we have here is the ability to change. This was that same thing of up here. We can change it to soft tissue, teeth, airways, back to bones, or default. Now, you can even go in here and further customize how this looks. So if you wanted to make it so that the teeth are green and bone is red, whatever you want to do, you can tweak this to your heart's content. But once again, because I altered that view again, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that contrast back down to where we liked it. So you notice when I did that, it trimmed this. If I wanted to, I could save that as a template, but in this case, this is good to go. So once again, now we'll click the next tab. So Next Step. Boom. Now we are in the data import screen. So this is where we're going to bring in some information. Let's just say we wanted to, in this case, bring in a scan of the lower jaw. So if you had a, let's just say an iTero or some sort of intraoral scanner, and you took an intraoral scan of the patient, you would use that STL file as your anatomy and bring that in. Or let's just say somebody sent you a surgical guide or whatever other bit of information you have as an STL file, we can bring it in here. If you don't have an intraoral scanner, you can actually use your Prime to scan the mold and make an STL file. There'll be another video on how to do that. But for now, let's take the anatomy that we have from an actual scanner and import it. So we'll click Anatomy. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to want us to find where that anatomy is. Now it already knows where it is for me, but it could be on your desktop. You might just have to locate it. For me, it's right here, and we're doing lower jaw. Click Open. And now we have them side by side. So what we're going to do here is we're going to adjust that contrast. Make sure to click out of it. We're going to lower this some, and I just want to put a series of points. So I want to match some points here that match to here. So we're going to just left click here, left click here, left click here, and we'll click here. Now I want to match those exact same points on my anatomy that I did on my actual DICOM scan. So we've got basically here, got here. We also have what looks like here, and then here. Once you've got your 4 points aligned, you can click fit point. Now I already know that this is going to be upside down because when it was scanned upside down. So if this happens or if it doesn't look right, why don't you go ahead and click assisted. Let the software do what it does, and it's going to go ahead and overlap it to what it feels is perfect. And in which case, in most cases, it really is. So just give it some time and boom. Now you'll see that it's gone and flipped it and made it perfectly. And you'll see it in all of these views. You'll see it's perfectly aligned. If you like it, which in this case we do, we can go ahead and click apply. Now you'll see here we have our anatomy on our DICOM. How cool is that? So next thing we do is just click next step. So once we get to this screen here, this is our CPR screen. This is where we're going to take our 3D image and we're going to turn it into a sort of a pan. So obviously we are working in the mandible, so we want to go ahead and click mandible. And then from here, I like to go ahead and place this yellow dot kind of at the apical ends of the anterior. And then we want to angulate this line here, this yellow line on the right screen, so it's kind of parallel to the occlusal, right? And then I like to zoom out, so right click, zoom out and hold, so that I get a nice bigger place to work. I'm just going to click a series of dots. So what we're doing here is we're just saying that this would have been the focal trough had we been taking a pan. And then you'll see, boom, you have your recreation of a pan here. Now, what we're really trying to achieve with this is a good view of the nerve. So I can increase the panoramic range. Boom. So I want to get that nerve lined up. So I'm just going to make some adjustments to these dots. I'm just going to left click these dots until I can see that nerve really start to come into play, right? Just clicking. If I wanted to, I can add a point even by left clicking in the center and adding a point if I need to. But we're just trying to see, where is that nerve? Where is it going? Because we want to map that nerve correctly. We want to make sure that, you can change this, grab this and kind of manipulate that. Well, we want to make sure that we can plot that nerve and map it so we don't have any problems when we place our implants. Of course, some people are easier to find their nerves than others. We're going to do our best with this particular scan. You can see I'm just moving these points until I can get a better view of that nerve, or the best view possible of that nerve. So once we like what we have, not super thrilled about the nerve on this side, but for the sake of this training and time, we'll go ahead and just focus over here. Once we like what we have, we'll click next step. You'll notice a trend. Everything is just next step, next step, next step. So we've moved from CPR down to nerve drawing. And just as it sounds, we're going to map this nerve. So if I use my roller on my mouse and I roll forward or backwards, sort of rolling buccolingual, this will actually help me so I can see that nerve a little better, because that nerve might kind of be squirrely within that jaw. So what we want to do here is just a series of clicks, left clicks. So once I get sort of the middle of that nerve, I'm just going to left click, left click, left click as I trace that nerve canal. I like to reinforce that I am not a dentist, so I don't have a trained eye for this. I'm sure you will be substantially better than me, but still gets the points. So in some cases, it could be really hard to see that nerve. I'm going to use my best judgment. Obviously, you're going to want to be far more precise. Now, somewhere in here is the mental framing. I went far too far. So you'll notice here, this is the mental framing. What I did was I rolled on this piece here, which rolls that blue line. So I went far too far. I want to actually remove some of these points. So we're going to go ahead and click delete last point, delete last point, delete last point, and then I want to end up right here. And now I want to come out here. I want to come out my mental framing. So if I wanted to, I can go ahead and add a left nerve on this side, but in this case, we're really only focused on extracting one of these teeth over here. So at this point in time, I'm only going to do the right nerve. It's important, though, that you remember to click Finish Drawing once you've mapped that nerve. So now that I have clicked Finish Drawing, it takes us back here to where you can actually see the nerve that we've placed. So now we've added more data to our DICOM. So now we have more information and we can make better diagnosis. From here, we'll click Next Step. So this takes us into our teeth setup screen. This is where we're going to tell the software where the teeth are, because it does not know what's going on in the individual's mouth. For example, you'll notice here that there are some teeth missing, right? So it has no idea where any of the teeth are that they're missing, or what you are planning on doing. So let's go ahead and add some information. We're going to say this is where 29 is, and this is where 30 is, because maybe those are the ones we want to extract and do an implant right there. So the other thing we can do within here is actually add a crown. I personally am not such a big fan of that, because it can be very time consuming and very tedious. I would say that you're better off just worrying about getting that implant in. I found that in a lot of cases, adding a crown just takes a lot of time. So, for example, place that there. Now you have to go in here, kind of drag it in. What's really hard about it is that you're trying to move a 3D object with multiple data points that you can adjust on a flat screen. Now, it is possible, it just can be difficult. But you can also grab it from these other views and move it around like so. Like I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of it. Has its purposes, but it's just a little difficult. In this particular case, because all the teeth are currently here and you haven't extracted anything, I think you would be better off with doing another scan afterwards once the extractions have been completed, and then you can go ahead and add these crowns. So we're going to go ahead and just delete that. Boom. Zoom back out, focus me in the center, and now we've gone ahead and said where we're 29 and 30 is. So what do? You got it. Next step. All right, so you'll see here 29 and 30, they're both highlighted, right? So the software knows where they are. So let's go ahead and click 30. Boom. takes us right here to where 230 is. Now, this takes us to our implant library. We have a whole bunch of implants. We more than likely have the implant that you're using. If we do not have the implant that you're using, it's possible that the implant is just a clone of another implant, and we more than likely have that one. If we absolutely don't have your implant and don't have your clone or don't have anything, just go ahead and give your implant company a call and ask them for the STL files, and those can be imported. But for right now, we're just going to use the generic implants so we don't play favorites to anybody. If you wanted to download one, let's just say this Easy Implants, you'll click the cloud, and that's going to start downloading. I'm currently on very slow Wi-Fi, so that would take some time to load, but this would just start downloading in the background. So we'll focus instead on generic. Once you're here, we can do a mini, or we can do a normal size. But if you noticed with the mini implant, something happened, something pulled up on the screen. Let's discuss that. So once I click mini, I got this 230 implant nerve collision. So what that means is, click OK, is the nerve that we mapped, that we told the software where it is, we're now hitting that nerve with the implant. That's because it just sort of dropped it on the screen. No big deal. We'll just grab it in the center and we can move it away. And now it's gone to green again. We are clear of that nerve. Of course, that's not the implant we're going to pick. We're going to obviously do something bigger. I'd like to reiterate, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just going to pick this one. There's probably a better size for that, but for the sake of what we're doing here, I'm just going to pick this. The reason being is because this is where we can use our measurement tool. So let's go ahead and click ruler. Let's click distance. Only got a little over 1 millimeter on either side here of this grace area to really focus on. It's not a whole lot. So in that case, you might want to make a decision to go a little thinner, right? And of course, we're going to want to place that implant in a better spot. So we'll just grab the implant in the center. Oh, but you'll see here, now we actually have an anatomy collision because the sleeve is going to hit the anatomy. So we want to refocus that. And all I'm doing is just grabbing it by these little points here, so I can either rotate it, adjust it like so from the bottom, or I can do that from the top. I just want to get it centered to where I like it. Once I've gotten it to where I like it, click apply. Now we have an implant. Let's just do 2 implants. Why not? So once again, we have a collision because it just duplicates the implant we just did. Let's do something totally different. Do this implant right here. So we're going to move that to where it should be. Make some adjustments here. This one actually go right on 29. Still running into that anatomy. Now I've fixed that. So make some adjustments. Do whatever you want. It's your case. Place it however you want. But if it is red and we like it, and you click apply, you'll notice that it shows up red here. So, and it's telling us there's an anatomy collision. If we click 30, we're good. But when we click 29, it warns us there's an anatomy collision. You can actually adjust the view in here to be different as well. So click layout, with this one, this is the most amount of data you can get. I like this screen a lot. So we're just going to go ahead and move this around. And in fact, not only could you do that, you could also adjust it right here on this 3D screen. Right now we no longer have an anatomy collision. We like the way that looks. Okay. So at this point in time, if this is what we're happy with, then we're good to go. If we decide, you know what, I don't like 30, I want to change 30, we can click on 30, click right here and click change, and we can pick a new implant. Or let's just say we actually wanted to change and add an abutment. We could do that, right? We can change even the sleeve. So all of this can be fine-tuned. If we decided, you know what, this is a little bit in my way, it's a little confusing, I want to take this out. So let's get rid of, we're not going to get rid of it in the sense that it's deleting it, but this just toggles it so that it's not in view. So we're only looking at one. Maybe the patient decided, you know what, I only want to do an implant here. We can still save the information because it's relevant, but now we're not on the screen. Or you can just delete it all together if you wanted to. So what do we do now, of course? Next step. So from this report screen, you can go ahead and click Implant Report. What's really cool about this is if we provide some information here, we can map out this entire implant. So you're allowed to put in as much information as you want. We can click here on planning. Is it going to be a sinus lift? Any notes that we need? Maybe they need to be sedated. Maybe we need to have a referring doctor, whatever you need, somebody else's help. And then you can also click on the particular implant and put in some information that's relevant there. So maybe you got to call the implant rep and have this one be ordered. It's a custom one. Maybe make sure the custom abutment is ordered in advance. And then finally, you can add your logo if you want. Go ahead and click OK. And then you can click training, and you can save it right to the desktop. Click save. And then in this case, there we go. Boom. Right here, we'll double click training. And here it is, a full PDF of your case. So all of your notes, everything you need to know. Obviously, this would have been your logo, not the Acteon logo. But your whole case is mapped out with all of the data. How cool is that? Now we'll go back into here. And when we go down here to Object List, this is where we can see what we've added. So we added a nerve, we added anatomy, we added some sleeves and some implants, and all of that is visible. Remember back in those VOI setting in the beginning where you had these options to toggle things on or off? Well, now we actually have that data that we can toggle on or off. So really cool. Take it back to this. So everything is there. How awesome is that? That's basically a quick tutorial, not that quick, but quick enough on how to use the software. As I mentioned, there are some additional features that you can do, such as endoscopy, airway studies, TMJ, things of that nature. These would be additional videos that I can show, that I can make later. But for right now, what we've covered is mostly 99% of what you're going to do. As I mentioned earlier, you never lose your original DICOM, right? So once you exit out of this, it'll ask you if you want to save. We can click yes. We'll click save it as training. We'll click OK. Do we want to overwrite the old project file? This is because when you actually generated your report, it saved it as training. I haven't really done anything since then, but yeah, we can override it. Or we could have just renamed it. Saving. Boom. So that was our template. Now let's go ahead and click back here. Here we go. So what we have here, this was that screenshot that we took. Then we also have this here. This is the new DICOM that has the training information with today's date. This is the one we did. This was the original. This is the new one. So let's just say you wanted to export this particular one because it has the implants in it. You could right-click it, and you could export the case, or you could create a DVD, or you could just open it up. So maybe you want to export this one to somebody else who has a 3D printer. You can go ahead and export it to them. Now, with that being said, if you double click it and you open it back up, you'll notice all of that information is here. So when they open up the file and they open up the software, they're going to see everything that you did. So this is exactly what they would see. The lower with these implants, the abutment, the nerve, because this is the information you provided. They won't have the upper because it wasn't in this scan. They will have all of the other information that was provided. So that pretty much covers everything you might need to know to really take off and do an awesome job. So if you have any questions, give a call to your local Acteon rep. If you're in Florida, that would be me. If you're somewhere else around the country, you can always go to our website and you could find our list of reps on our website somewhere in here. But just click here, contact us, and we'll find them for you if you can't. But hopefully you know. And also, if you're ever curious about some of the other products we have, take a look on our website, because we have a lot of really cool products. Anyways, have a great day. Thanks for watching.